7 o'clock, I'd like to call the meeting to order. Mrs. Mead, would you call the roll, please?
Yes. Mr. Gauck?
Here.
Mr. Parrish?
Here.
Mr. Henning?
Here.
Mr. Madrell?
Here.
Mr. Haas?
Here.
Mr. Wilkerson?
Here.
Mrs. Towers? Here. Mr. Crumper?
That's a quorum. Let's all stand for the pledge of allegiance. I pledge allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all. Agenda changes.
There is one. I need to eliminate old business item A. I did not get all the bid specs back for the bus, but I should have that all by the December meeting.
Okay. At this time, I'd like to welcome our public this evening. At this time, if anybody wants to make any comments to the board, you can do it at this time. Okay, since there's no comments, we'll move on to the consent agenda. Does anybody have any questions, corrections, or additions to the consent agenda? If not, then I'll need a motion to accept the consent agenda.
I'll move.
Moved by Mr. Parrish, second by Mr. Henning. Let's start the voting tonight with Mr. Parrish.
Aye.
Aye. Aye.
Aye, motion passes. Okay, committee reports, none. Okay, we're down to Mr. Wilkerson's report.
All right. So academically, several students took part in the McKendree Model UN conference last week. This is a mock United Nations conference where students write resolutions, which are basically essays outlining solutions to world issues, and they delegate their positions in committees. And this takes place over the span of 2 days, which took place over the 7th and the 8th last week. I know a lot of people do it. I was in it for a couple of years, and it's a lot of fun. It's really cool because you get to go and you get to compete with other schools and delegate issues, and it's a big debate team is what it is, and it's really interesting. The math team closed out their season with a 3rd place trophy in the Southwest Math Conference, which is pretty impressive. We were snubbed in a trophy last year. We got 4th, so that was pretty exciting. They had their final competition at SWIC last Monday. And they won their award based on their final total point tally from previous competitions. So there were 4 competitions that took place over the span of a month, and we had the 3rd highest point tally in our division. So that's how we won. And then the English department hosted a book fair at Barnes & Noble last weekend, and a percentage of those total proceeds go to the English department so they can buy books for their classrooms, so kids can read them and do projects on them and whatnot. Athletically, boys and girls cross-country teams closed out their season with the state finals last weekend. Both teams led up to competitions by sweeping conference, regionals, and sectional titles. So both boys and the girls team got the gold. Girls team placed 8th. Brianna Chandler was All-State with a 25th place finish of 18-18. And then the boys team had a historic 2nd place finish. We were just shy of the state championship by 9 points. Charlie Parrish was All-State with a time of 15:25, and Alex Mack was All-State with a time of 15:28. It was the first state trophy ever won by the program and the first time ever that both the boys and the girls teams placed in the top 10. With that, all fall sports came to a close. Basketball has begun their conditioning and they are anticipating the beginning of their season. The varsity boys open their season with the Metro East tournament November 21st, and then the varsity girls also open their season on November 21st with the Nashville tournament. Boys bowling's already begun their season. They had their Collinsville tournament November 5th, and then they had an East-West and O'Fallon match on November 10th. Their next competition's tomorrow at Breeze Mater Day. Girls bowling starts their season on the 26th with the Collinsville tournament, so they start a little bit later. Cheerleading, they start their competitive season pretty soon. I believe their first competition is in December. And then the band closed out their competitive season, and they're starting pep band at the start of basketball season. So they got high times as well.
Thank you. Any questions for Mr. Wilkerson? If not, we're down to the principal's report. Oh, okay, go ahead.
What was your finish up there, Drew?
My
You were
finish?
top 5 for us. What was it?
I had a 15:40, and
That's the best time ever, isn't it?
yep, PR.
You are awesome.
Brought that
place to
back
do
for
it.
us, so you're right.
Oh,
Great
thanks.
job.
Thanks a lot.
Anyone else? Okay, principal's report.
Okay, we had about right around 600 parent-teacher conferences.
during that time. And of course, the teachers, visit lots of different teachers during that time, but fairly decent turnout for high school, and was glad to see so many parents coming out and visiting. A couple things in the academics. The Woods class students have been really busy. They built and installed a storage shelf in Mr. Lauer's office. They also made a sign for St. Clair County Sheriff on a CNC wood router. The trade students designed and created their own keychains and badges using the 3D printer this last month, which is pretty cool. Mechanical drafting students designed bowling tags for the team, and they're also used in making those on the 3D printer. AP Calculus, Mr. Miller sent this one to me because the kids were pretty excited about it, but he said they've been working on applying implicit differentiation to real life problems. He says, example is, you're laughing, this is your class, isn't it?
Yeah.
Filling funnel cones with water and finding out how fast volume, height, radius are changing with respect to time. He says the kids are having a great time with it. He goes, not everybody understands it, but the kids think it's really cool and they've been enjoying that and using those real life things in calculus. In honor of the presidential election, the U.S. history classes just finished presentations on topics within the Thomas Jefferson presidency, and social studies seminar just completed presidential election campaign video advertisements, and they've been presenting them to the classes. Mrs. Etter, and during the Halloween day, brought in her own fire pit, and outside, and for their literature unit, they did ghost stories and literature readings around the fire pit and had s'mores, so that was kind of fun. So lots of good creative things there in the classroom. Clubs and activities. We had 12 Freeburg FFA members attend the National FFA Convention in Indianapolis. 2 members received American FFA degrees, which is less than 1% of the FFA members nationwide receive this degree. They are students that start this project in high school and they finish it in their first and second year of college. So these are actually alumni of Freeburg High School, so it's Justin Reinick and Greg Irwin. Also some other things, thanks to students Lexi Pinkston, Lacey Trevere, Bryce Rutledge, John Hilfert, Jacob Richardson, Owen Smith, and Connor Mack for volunteering their time to help with the concessions for the Monster Mash Volleyball Tournament. The MABC was a little shorthanded that weekend for parent volunteers, but that's also because it was run at 4 different schools, so we had a lot of student participation. Also thanks to Mr. Fraking, Jim Elby, Nick Elby, and Zach Elby for the time they spent moving the fence by the concession stand. If you've not been out there to see it, it includes now the entrance and the patio at the concession stand so people can get in and out, and they donated their time and energy to making that happen. 15 students from the band were selected to participate in the Prairie Honor Band on November 22nd. The Service Club, sponsored by Mrs. Klosinski, and the Literary Club, sponsored by Mrs. Asher, they're going to the Christian Activity Center in East St. Louis on November the 28th. Students will perform a variety of activities, helping students with homework, reading to kids, those type of things. The Service Club is also holding meal making sessions to make casseroles to freeze. The casseroles will be given to the St. Vincent de Paul Society and to the FCCLA to use at the Belleville Christian Center. The Science Club is having their annual food drive. They provide food to both the Freeburg and the Smithton pantries. FCCLA is busy as always. They will help unload and organize the donations given at Mom's House, which is a home base for moms on a mission. The donations will be used for the homeless and less fortunate. They also traveled last Wednesday to Fisher House to put together goodie bags and deliver them to veterans in the hospital and in hospice care located on the grounds. And then the students also took time to visit with the residents for Veterans Day. The FCCLA will also volunteer at the Ronald McDonald House on November 29th. Couple teachers here doing some cool things too. Our first year science teacher at FCHS, Andrew Morgan, he's still doing a fellowship at SIUC as he works here for us as well. And on his day off last Friday, he traveled back to SIUC and spoke with their math classes that are going to be future teachers. And he'd been invited to speak as a National Science Foundation member. He talked with undergraduate college students who are going to be teaching next semester on classroom management, what it's really like, how to find a job, interviewing. So I think it's really great when a teacher that can go back and give back to those students that are coming up in the education field. The FCHS faculty had a school in-service day this month too, And they spent some of that time in a 2-hour refresher course in all the new special ed laws and changes. And Jeff Doherty, who used to be a football coach for us years ago, who's the executive director of Bass, came in and did that program for free and gave our teachers a full update. So it was great for that. A couple other students in the news. Congratulations to Skylar Ross, who was selected to the Illinois Music Educators Association district level band on the clarinet. Congratulations to Abby Quirin, Madison Hurd, Hannah Harbaugh on being selected all conference in volleyball for the Kokia Conference. Jordan Schwimmer, this is a non-related school activity, but she's very big into horseback riding and Western saddle. And she was named the 1D Illinois NBHA Youth Barrel Racing Champion when she won the finals 2 weeks ago. Other upcoming events, Blue and White Basketball Scrimmage fundraiser on November 17th. The Freeburg Foundation Turkey Trot is Saturday, so get ready. The Music Boosters Trivia Night will be on December the 3rd. Gonna let Drew talk all about cross country. It was exciting to go, and our kids and families were just absolutely amazing. Shout out to the Freeburg Police Department, Freeburg Fire Department for their escorts at the Sunday parade. I would like Mrs. Harris for a minute. Can you talk about the school play?
Sure. The play was weekend before last. We did 2 productions. We did Shirley Jackson's The Possibility of Evil, and then we did Agatha Christie's Mousetrap. The reason we did 2 is because Mousetrap's only about an hour and a half, and I like to do about a 2-hour performance. And a lot of my actors are seniors, so I was kind of need to get some more kids in. And a lot of kids, the freshmen coming in wanted to do crew, but they weren't real big on wanting to act. So the other play kind of had lots of little smaller roles to get them up on stage and be comfortable. So I'm trying to keep growing the program. So.
And then Mrs. Crump, can you explain Teen Court for us?
Teen Court, yeah. Teen Court, they needed some kids from our school to represent Freeburg High School. They go up to the courthouse, and they've all been accepted. There was 5 of them that was chosen by faculty and some of our counselors, and they go and they are going to represent Freeburg High School along with other high school students. And basically what they're going to do is they're going to help make decisions about kids that are in trouble, juvenile kind of delinquent kids, and kind of help give them other alternatives instead of maybe being put in juvenile
Detention.
homes, you know, that kind of stuff. So they're going to help, and they're going to get together, and they're going to make better decisions to kind of help those kids to get back on their feet and make better decisions. And so they meet they meet one Saturday every other month. So the kids are not committed, you know, all the time. They can still be able to do other activities, but still be able to do this. And we chose kids that were going to do something with law, counseling, and those kinds of things. And it's this is our first year, so I'm excited to hear. They had their first. Allison Burkheader, I think, went this past Saturday, so I got to touch base with her and see how it went. And so I'm pretty excited about it. I think it's really neat for our students.
And I just have a short feel-good story for you about school. A student in our life skills class celebrated his 17th birthday on October 26th because he kept telling us it was October 26th. Mrs. Wessel, who's the teacher of that class, sent me an email because she was just amazed at how many faculty members and regular education students stopped in her classroom to wish the student and acknowledge his special day. Many of the students had also purchased gifts. The student was so excited and very happy. This student is in the hallways every single morning talking to everybody. Hi, how you doing? How you doing? And he is just all over the place. He also volunteers every chance he get in our Cafe de Midget out here in the morning. And I like this because it's just a really great demonstration of just how genuine and caring and good our students and our faculty are. It's just it's great to see that and see our kids just be such a positive impact. Thanks.
Thank you. Any questions for Mrs. Young? If not, we're down to the superintendent's report.
Okay, mine's fairly short, I think. I've been attending some meetings at CCSI, which is the Career Center for Southern Illinois, formerly known as BEC. Not unlike most of the other districts, school districts, they are struggling financially. They are mainly funded by their adult LPN program, which has had a reduced enrollment in recent years. So they're looking to out to their member schools, and we participate in their programs to try to help them out. So they're in the process of looking at several different things. One is alternate funding, trying to advertise for their adult LPN program, and then they're also looking at their curriculum to make sure their curriculum is a viable curriculum for students. Most of the students that go there use the vocational education program. So districts that do not have a vocational education program send their students there. We use what is known as the optional education program, and so students that are not successful here, we can send there. They do pick up some vocational things, but they also take regular ed classes. So we're still trying to work through. Initially, they were thinking that they may have to start charging for transportation, which we are not charged for now. So it could be a little bit of a fee. I did, in one of my wiser moves, volunteer Mrs. Minor to be on the curriculum committee. So she's eagerly going to serve on that and look at review their curriculum. And so as more information comes, I'll keep bringing that to the board. Also, I wanted to point out an email that I had sent to the board. I had forwarded an alliance report from it's that Vision 2020, and it talked about a lot of the things, the legislation that was going on with the recent election. Statewide, there's been a little bit of a shift. One of the things that has happened is Speaker Madigan has lost his supermajority. So I don't know if you can say he's been weakened a little bit, but the Senate still has a supermajority, which means they can override vetoes, the governor's vetoes. But it also talked about some of the things that are probably we need to look for in the veto sessions. They're looking at another shot at pension reform, which they tried a couple years ago. It got shot down by the Supreme Court. They're looking at coming up with a new funding model. It's called evidence-based funding. And then they're also looking at a shift in the pension cost, which I mentioned at a different time that that could cost us upward between $1 or $2 million a year if we would have to pay for that, and there was no mechanism to help pay for that. So feel free to read through that. I just gave Dean kind of a rundown of some of the sessions at the III conference, and there's actual sessions on each one of these, so I'm interested in hitting those and seeing what they have to say. I don't know a lot about the new funding model, this evidence-based funding, so I'm eager to learn about that. So that's all I have for my report.
Okay, any questions for Mr. Breaking on his report? Okay, if not, move to new business.
New business, the first thing is approve the tentative tax levy. As board members recall, this is a 2-month process. Basically, we are guessing what we think the EAB is going to be, which won't come out until the spring. So I've gone to a couple different meetings put on by some groups. I've also met with the other superintendents in the area and try to pick their brains on the proper way to go about this. One of the biggest issues that occurs with the levy is you have to kind of balloon your levy a little bit to make sure you cover all of the possible taxes that are going to come in. If you levy too small of an amount, then the district takes the chance of not bringing all the tax money that they could get depending on what the EAB is. So while I think the EAB is going to end up being in the $260 million range, I think last year was about 253 or 4 million. We have based all the levy numbers on 272 million. This is quite a bit lower than we've looked at in the past, but it does represent probably about an 8% increase in the tax revenue that we could get in. So since that's over the 5% threshold, we will have to have what's known as the Truth in Taxation hearing in December. And so that being said, I think probably the best thing to do is just to kind of go through these one at a time. And if anybody has questions, they'd be more than happy to try to answer them. So you have a handout that contains kind of an abbreviated levy. It was in your binder, so I think it says proposed 2016 levy. I think we made a copy of this. It's on the website for anybody else that wants to see it. And it's probably, go back a couple pages. There you go. Yeah. So it's about 3 pages long. Starts off with Fund 10, the Education Fund. The district is levying their max percentage at 1.02%. At a $272 million EAB. We think that the district will bring in $2,774,400. I taught math. So it's my recommendation that is what is set. This is a capped fund, so therefore we're kind of stuck at the limit of 1.02%.
Any questions for Mr. Precking on the education fund levy?
If the EAV is only the $260 million, that would generate the $2,652,000 that you've got listed.
Correct.
Okay.
I'm trying to remember back to the previous years, and I always understood why we said, okay, 310 for an EAV is what we were going to shoot for, because we didn't want to leave any money on the table. I understood that. And then last year, we actually levied a particular dollar amount with each one of these funds that turned into, no kidding, increases in dollars collected across, and it was regardless of the EAV on many of the funds. As I looked at this, my understanding is for the education, the special ed, and the buildings and maintenance, those are the 3 funds that are fixed percentages that it doesn't matter what, unless we would ask for less, but it doesn't matter what we ask for. They're fixed at 1.02% for the education fund on whatever the EAV is. Is that a true statement?
Those are capped funds.
Yes.
So we get the money from the particular EAV. So if the EAV comes in at 272 million, we get the number that's bolded. If it comes into 260 million, we get the number above. So it's based on the EAV and the capped percentage that we're allowed to levy.
All right. So the amount that we levy does not make a difference.
Other than that, doesn't allow us, we don't lose out if the EAV is higher than the 260.
Well, what happened to where was it that we asked for 310 on the EAV and we got 252? That was what my memory was, is that we always asked for a higher EAV, but we didn't ask for particular levies.
We've always asked for a dollar value for each levy.
Okay.
The capped funds are simply capped. You cannot increase the percentage of the levy that you're going to get in taxes. The uncapped funds, you can increase the percentage you would get.
Okay. And so am I correct in my looking through the notes that the education, the special ed, and the buildings and grounds are the 3 that are fixed regardless of any action?
Transportation.
Oh, transportation is another one?
Working cash is fixed. Health, life, safety is fixed. So we can't increase those without a referendum. So if the EAV comes in lower, then we will bring in lower dollar value.
regardless of what we say. If we say
Correct.
300,000, it doesn't matter. If it's 250, it's what we get.
That's what we get, correct.
Okay.
But, and again, we levy high, so in case the levy comes in higher than we're thinking, then we're able to capture that dollar value.
And
So
then
that's how it works for all the cap funds.
I suppose it was just the explanation, a different explanation on why we set it at 310 million, so that that was the number that I remembered.
It was 300 is what it was. It
Okay.
was 300. And part of the reason last year that it was set so high, Freeburg High School and Freeburg Grade School did, was the fear that PTEL was going to be put in place through one of these veto sessions. And so your ability to increase your revenue is greatly diminished if PTEL comes through. It caps how much you can increase your taxes. So if you had levied higher, then your threshold is higher. So it was the hopes that it would build in a little bit of a threshold and to kind of protect us from PTEL.
Okay.
Now, rumors are that they're still trying to push that through, but I went this route.
Okay.
I wish I had a better explanation.
No, it's good. It was just different than what,
It's a different person saying it.
Any other questions? If not, I need a motion to approve the recommended levy at 2 million. Pardon me. Oh, you still got another question?
well, only, I would request on each one of these that is actually a roll call.
It's gonna be a roll call.
Okay. Good.
So we're just doing the ed fund right now.
Yeah, we're gonna.
It's the only one that we're doing.
He's gonna explain each one as we go along here and vote on them individually. So back, I need a motion to approve the levy for $2,774,400. Moved by Mr. Perry. Second by Mrs. Towers. Mr. Henning. Start the vote.
Aye.
Aye. Aye.
Aye.
Aye.
Motion passes.
Special education fund is a cap fund. We can levy 2 cents per $100 assessed value. At $272 million levy, I'm anticipating that the district would bring in $54,400 for the fiscal year 18.
Any questions on the special ed levy? If not, I need a motion to approve the special ed levy for $54,400. Moved by Mr. Henning, second by Mr. McGraw. Mr. McGraw, start voting, please.
Aye. Aye.
Aye.
Aye.
Motion passes.
Operation maintenance is capped at 25 cents per $100 EAV. Again, at $272 million estimated EAV, we bring in $680,000 to the district in fiscal year 18.
Any questions on the operation and maintenance levy? If not, I need a motion to approve the operation and maintenance levy at $680,000.
So moved.
Moved by Mr. McGraw.
Second.
Second by Mr. Hawes. Mr. Hawes, go ahead and start voting.
Aye.
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 Motion passes.
The lease levy is capped at, did I say lease levy or what? Capped? It's capped as well. At a nickel. And this pays for like a lot of our stuff that we lease, Chromebook and things like that. And at a EAV of $272 million, I anticipate bringing in $136,000 to the district in fiscal year 18.
Any questions on the lease levy? If not, I need a motion to approve the lease levy for $136,000.
So moved.
Moved by Mr. Hawes. Second by Mrs. Towers. Mrs. Towers, start the vote, please. Aye.
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 Aye. Aye.
Bond and interest. The bond and interest works a little bit differently. The county takes the different bonds that we have outstanding. They calculate what our payments are. Those payments are based on what we agreed to when we took the bonds out. It's all in our audit. And so we're estimating, when looking at the audit, that we will need to levy $529,000 for the bonds. And I don't know, it's probably just as good just to approve it, but this is, I mean, this is based on what the the audit is, and then what the auditor tells us that we need to do, and on the repayment plan. So I estimate we're going to bring in $529,000 in this fund for fiscal year 18.
Any questions on the bond and interest fund? If not, I will make the motion to approve the bond and interest fund for $529,000.
Second.
Second by Mr. Parrish. I'll start voting with yes.
Aye.
Aye.
Aye. Nay.
Motion passes.
Transportation fund is a cap fund again at 12 cents. Add an EAV of $272 million. I estimate that we will bring in $326,400 into this fund in fiscal year 18.
Any questions on the transportation fund? If not, I need a motion to approve the transportation fund for three. Okay. Moved by Mr. Perry, second by Mr. Henning. Start the voting with Mr. Perry.
Aye.
Aye.
Aye. Aye.
Aye. Motion passes.
The Illinois Municipal Retirement Fund, IMRF, is actually broken down into two different levies. These are based on anticipated costs for next year. So the two costs are $157,000 for Social Security and $179,000 for IMRF, for a total of $336,000 brought into the IMRF fund.
Any questions on the IMRF fund?
So,
Moved by Mr. Perry.
no, I would ask a
Okay,
question.
you got-
So the numbers that you have there, this is our estimate of what we're going to need,
Correct.
and then that's where we come up with the number that we're asking for?
Right.
Okay.
On the previous, some of the other data that you had here, that so we will have an increase in expense over those two funds from this year
Yes.
to next year.
Because they're a percentage of salaries, and salaries are going up. It's 4.5% is the employer share for one, and 5.6% is well. It looks like employers is 5.6% is what our portion is. So when the salaries go up, you take 5% of a bigger number, it's going to increase.
And that's by law. But that is not a cap fund.
Nope.
Any more questions? I need a motion to approve the levy for the Illinois Municipal Retirement Fund.
Including Social Security.
Yeah.
I'll make that motion.
Motion by Mr. Henning.
Second.
Second by Mr. Madrell. Mr. Henning. first
Aye.
vote.
Aye. Aye.
Aye.
Aye.
Motion passes. Working cash.
Working cash is capped at a nickel. And again, this kind of works as our internal bank, and a little bit of cushion for us. At $772 million, I anticipate we'll bring in $136,000 into the working cash fund for fiscal year 18.
Any questions on the working cash fund levy? If not, I'll need a motion to approve the working cash fund levy.
So moved.
Moved by Mr. Madrell.
Second.
Second by Mr. Hawes. Let's see, Mr. Hawes starts the voting.
Aye.
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 Motion passes. Tort levy.
Tort levy. So this has been a project started with Mr. Lehman to increase the district's ability to pay expenses of different programs, different costs, and including salary and benefits from the tort levy, our tort fund. And what it does is it essentially helps out the education, transportation, operation, and maintenance fund. Those costs are outlined in the risk management plan. So based on the $272 million, I am recommending that this be increased. We levied last year $1 million. Our anticipated costs that could be paid out of tort for next year are $1,305,000. So that's my recommendation, is that we increase the tort levy to $1,305,000 for fiscal year 18.
Any questions on the tort levy?
Does this include like lawyer fees, everything like that? Or
Yes.
When we have out-of-case courses?
Well, those are
settlements
typically
and all
paid
that
by
other
insurance companies.
stuff? Okay. But
So if, if I need to call the lawyer, whatever it is, there's a fee for that. 100% of the lawyer's fees are covered by tort.
Any other questions?
Yes.
Go ahead.
Just a few weeks ago, you gave a kind of a status of the school district, and actually had told us that we were going to come in this year in pretty good shape, is my recollection of your analysis, that costs were, what we had coming in, were going to cover costs for this year, mainly because we had gotten a little bit more from than anticipated from the state. Is that an accurate?
I'd have to look back to see where I said that we were going to be in good shape.
Well,
I don't recall that.
for this year, that was my memory of your analysis, is that we were going to be all right for this year, mainly due to a little bit more money from the state. And I understand and I don't want to paint it as a shell game with this tort fund. They've allowed a certain percentage of your salary, bus driver's salary, teacher's salary, coach's salaries, to be paid out of this tort fund. And it resulted in a $500,000 increase last year. And to ask for another $300,000 this year to effectively make up shortfalls in the education fund, my opinion is it's asking too much from the taxpayers. I looked at your numbers on the effect of an increase on a $200,000 home. It doesn't jive with my experience on mine. Mine's assessed as a $300,000 home, and it resulted in a $300 increase in my taxes just to this district. It was, in fact, 11.8% last year. These numbers that you're asking for, while many of them are dependent on the EAV, last year's increase was $850,000. This year's increase is approximately $610,000. Rough math that we're asking for. You said 8%, and that those numbers should come out. And my opinion is that just because you have the ability to do it doesn't mean that you should. And increasing the tort fund to cover educational fund expenses, well, I see why you can do it and why you might want to do it. I think it's too much of a burden on the taxpayers.
Any other questions?
How much? We're on the watch list. Okay. Money-wise talking, all the funds, to get off the watch list, what we're going to do? How much are we going to have to increase which fund by what to get off the list? That's my question.
What put us on the watch list was our revenue to expense ratio. The rest of our numbers on the watch list were good. We got a 1 on that one, and it dropped us down. So, Gary, I don't have a number off the top of my head that we would need.
But we actually spent more than we can, obviously.
Yes, and
So that's why
we're
we're watching.
anticipated to do the same thing. The budget shows a over $500,000 transfer from 3 different funds into the ed fund to cover the deficit. So, again, I'd be surprised if you could find something that I said that we were okay this year. In fact, I think I've been trying to say just the opposite in just about everything I've written or said. And so anything, you know, I pay taxes in the district and my taxes have gone up and I don't like it either. But, you know, I'm looking at a $300,000 increase this year. I kind of compare that to basically at $50,000 a pop, 6 teachers. And so, not that I'm wanting to hire new teachers, but I sure as heck don't want to have to, in a year or so from now, tell 6 people they can't work here because we're running short. And, you know, maybe the state will turn things around and this new evidence-based funding model will come through and it'll be wonderful. And we can lower a lot of these levies in future years because we don't have to play the shell game. But unfortunately, this is a common practice by districts throughout the state because it is a mechanism that we can bring in extra revenue to cover costs that have been a shortfall from the state for many years. Yeah.
In other words, this is our way out of possibly covering all our losses, at least part of our losses. If we didn't have that in effect last year, we have really been down, you've been probably to 0, right?
Well, I mean, again, Gary, I don't know.
Out of $1 million, we probably got, how much do we have to use out of that?
We only used 500 some odd thousand out of TOR last year. So we did not use it to its fullest extent. So, but when I anticipate, you know, project what I think our costs are going to be next year with the anticipated increase in salaries, I came up with this number. But it is going to put us on a lot more solid ground. Will it get us off the watch list? I don't know. I would hate to say yes or no, but it's definitely going to put us a little closer but even more importantly, it's going to put us closer to having positive fund balances at the end of the year instead of having to basically steal from these other funds to keep going forward, because you can only do that so long before you basically run out of money. And that's kind of where we're headed right now.
Last question. We get the 1.3 million this year. We got extra left over. What can we drop that to next year? Even levy anything for it if we get like $600,000, $700,000,
Well,
$1 million.
we could absolutely make adjustments next year.
That's what I want to know.
Well,
Are we stuck at that number forever, or just for this year?
No, this is a 1 year. So
Okay.
each year you go back through and reevaluate and levy. You know, I probably need to correct a statement I made earlier. We had budgeted spending about $500 some odd thousand, charging $500 some odd thousand to the tort fund. Once I started investigating and trying to learn more about the tort process and started looking through files that I didn't have when the budget was done, I found the whole risk management plan, and we're going to be able to use all of the tort money. So I anticipate this year that we're going to be a little bit ahead of what I thought we were going to be, which will help us out. And then if we can keep going in that direction next year and take the amount of money that I'm asking for in this levy, it's only going to help us out a little bit more. I think some place I wrote that the money that we get, 60 to 65% of the money we get comes from the taxpayers. And it's always been that way here. We do not rely on the state and federal funding to carry the school like many schools do. So the taxpayers have always been burdened with taking care of the school. And unfortunately, when we're in bad shape and when the state's done what they've done for the last 10 years, the taxpayers have had that burden. And it's not fair. But I don't know of another answer.
The only thing I'll add with that is seldom has it been my experience that anything has been ever given back or lessened. Certainly last year, it wasn't. Administrative error prevented it from being brought up and lessened when the EAV numbers came out. And so an 11.8% increase was effect on the taxpayers. And I can't help but wonder why, when it comes to this, and this is pretty low-hanging fruit, to raise the levy. There's a lot of other more difficult, and certainly you've looked at those personnel and programs. We've looked at those. But we've also had an opportunity that we've missed to look at the consolidation for a very low cost, possibly even just $1,000 for our portion of a study. And yet we're looking for $609,000. And that's something that I can't understand, our reluctance to move forward on every single avenue that we can to make the numbers more efficient, or less, or more, or at least be able to tell people we've done everything that we can. So
unfortunately, we're kind of saddled with a time frame set up by law that this is the time that we have to do this. I said earlier, and I'll keep looking, and we have found little things that we are able to save money on. We're not talking about thousands and thousands of dollars, but several different areas that we found places that we were able to kind of cut back and change some things. But unfortunately, this is the time when the levy has to be done. Mm-hmm. And our work on keeping an eye on costs will continue throughout the rest of the year.
Any more questions on the tort levy?
This is just a way in. I appreciate Dennis's advocacy for that, but the words financial watch list don't make me comfortable. And what I hear you saying, Greg, is that you're mindful of Dennis's concern. But I don't know. I mean, when I heard Paul talk about when you're on the financial watch list, that hit me pretty good. And I think that in the greater scheme of things, getting off of that as soon as possible is a good idea. And all of these things that we're talking about can be examined in the course of the next year. And maybe some other things can be found that they've already been through the numbers, and we've got to get this done. And I don't see that, I don't want to stay on the financial watch list. Nor do I.
And I can understand that. I will say that he didn't have percentages for this year's numbers of schools that were on the financial. We are not alone in that we're doing something wrong. We're not taxing enough. We're spending too much. Our teachers that is not the case. We're doing nothing different than all the other schools out there. He had percentages from previous years, and there were fewer, and this year there's a lot more. I would like to see what those numbers are. But we're not alone on being on a financial watch list. I think many other schools are in a similar program. It's been thrust upon us, not by what we've done, but what the state has failed to do. And I'm just not certain that we can tax our way off of this. I'm concerned that we're on it also, but I don't think we can tax our way out of it.
Any other comments on the tort levy? If not, I need a motion to approve the tort levy.
So
moved by Mr. Madrell. Second by Mrs. Towers. Vote by Mrs. Towers.
Aye.
Aye.
Nay.
Aye.
Aye.
Nay.
Motion passes. Fire safety.
All right, fire safety is a cap fund at a nickel. at $272 million EAV, anticipate $136,000 coming into the Fire Safety, Health Life Safety Fund in fiscal year 18.
Any questions on the fire safety fund or levy? If not, I'll make the motion to approve the fire safety levy.
Second.
Second by Mr. Parrish. I'll start off by aye.
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 Motion passes. Okay, item B, approved disbursements of travel funds to board members attending III conference.
It's been the annual practice of the district to advance $350 to board members that are going to the III conference, actually on Thursday through Sunday, to cover travel expenses and expenses associated with the conference.
Need a motion to approve. Motion by Mr. Henning. Second. Second by Mr. Madrell. We'll start that with a roll call of Mr. Henning.
Aye.
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 Motion passes. Item C, approved first reading of board policies 2.125, 4.175, 5.60, 7.190, 7.315.
The first policy, 2.125, is this is generated by a new law, the Local Government Travel Expense Control Act, and it's an attempt to make as public as possible the expenses that the board members take on when they do their business for the board. It includes a standard expense sheet that needs to be filled out prior to the travel, and then an expense sheet that's filled out after the travel. Both of those can be approved in the consent agenda, so they'll be included in the board packets and the bills paid. And then there's a resolution that we will go through in December that actually sets a threshold for expenses that a board member can spend on a trip. And then if a board member goes over that, either the money, they have to pay that themselves, or the board can approve that, but it has to be done in an open session, roll call vote outside of the consent agenda. So that's 2.125. 4.175 is an update in procedures incorporated with amendments to criminal history background checks. There's also clarification of screening and fingerprinting. 560, this is the stat equivalent to the 2.125. So we'll have similar sheets that we have to fill out. Same procedure as the board for that. The 7.19 is just simply a change in the name of the student discipline policy to student behavior policy. And then 7.315 is a new policy that outlines proper conduct for student publications. It speaks about the prohibited student acts. A lot of this is included in our handbook already, but this is a recommended policy from the ASBO.
Any questions on the policy changes? If not, I'll need a motion to approve the policy changes. Moved by Mrs. Towers, second by Mr. Madrell. Those in favor say aye.
Actually, Dennis.
Oh, it's Dennis? Okay. Okay, change it to Mr. Haas. Those in favor say aye.
Aye.
Those opposed say no. Motion passes. Item D.
The next is to approve van bid specifications. If board members recall, we talked about, we have a little Astro van that's in need of replacing. It's fairly old. I don't have exactly the age of the van, but it's a smaller van. It's used just to transport kids back and forth for work study. What we're looking to do is replace the van with a larger 8-passenger van. And if the van bid specs are approved, then we can put this out for bid and then have the bids back to you by December to look at approval to purchase the van. We have budgeted I think, $120,000 this year for vehicles. And the item that we pulled off the table, there's actually some grant money available for the bus, so that's good news. And so I'm hoping that we're going to come way under budget in transportation for a vehicle, but we are in need of a new van. And these are the bid specs. It's in your packet. And so that's put together by our transportation director.
Any questions? Go ahead.
Just, I was curious on the 8-passenger seating versus, do we have a 13 or a 15-passenger van? I mean, they certainly have larger econo vans that are a certain number of, I can think of some teams that.
So you may be thinking of an activity bus, the white buses that you see like at the cross-country.
I've seen full-size Ford or Ford vans that carry approximately, I thought it was 12 to 15 passengers. They usually have 4 rows or 5 rows of seating in them in there. The only thing I was curious about was the difference between a 12-passenger vehicle and an 8-passenger vehicle, where our next step up is, okay, send a small bus and pay for a bus driver.
There's a couple issues with the bus driver. We're short on bus drivers, so trying to get a bus driver is not the easiest thing to do. You do need a bus license to drive the yellow bus.
Well, I mean, you sound like you're supporting my argument that if we had a 12 to 15 passenger van that wasn't yellow, that our coaches are, for golf coach, for instance, or bowling coach, or cross-country coach up to state. Anything that would qualify under 15, but more than 8. I didn't know what the cost difference between an 8 and a larger passenger number van would be.
I do not know. We have been buying this size of a van for a while. I don't know if it has to do with regulations on transporting students. I know we can't transport them back and forth to school in a van. This can only be for extracurricular and different trips during the day. But this is what we have been buying. That's why we're looking at the 8-passenger. It works for us. We haven't had the need to buy the bigger van. So the cost of buying a bigger vehicle, and we talked about an activity bus, Mike and I did, and right now we're having a hard time justifying the cost of a $40,000 or $50,000 bus that could transport. Now the buses those little ones transport about 15 kids, 15 to 21, depending on the bus you get. And you can get the white activity buses, and you do not have to have a bus permit to drive those, believe it or not. And so we looked at that, but the cost does not seem to outweigh the cost we would spend on drivers.
Okay.
And that's really the difference.
My question was only on the number of passengers, why we were limiting ourselves to 8 versus like 12.
I honestly do not have the exact answer. It's just that this is the size we've been buying.
Go ahead, Gary.
One question. I know we've got a new bus in the process with the grant and so on and so forth. How old are our buses? I don't know how old, I don't even remember when the last time we bought a bus. I'm
It's been
sitting
about
here
3 years.
3 or 4 years,
Yeah.
but I said, how long do those buses last? You got to put some mileage.
The van we're looking to replace, I think, is in 2003. No, I take it back. 2003 or 2004 is the van.
Well, I looked at one of the buses out there, had like 170,000 miles on it.
They do.
I'm going,
They
how long
do.
will these things hang on here, the way they're driven every
They don't
day?
hang on
Very long?
much longer
I
than
know,
that.
but
So
that's-
we're in need of starting to look at replacing some
Yeah, I
of
was
these
going to say,
vehicles.
'cause they all, I don't remember getting a new one here lately.
It's been a few years.
Any other questions on the van bid specifications? If not, I need a motion to approve the specifications. Moved by Mr. Henning. Second by Mr. McGrail. Those in favor say aye.
Aye.
Those opposed say no. Motion passes. Let's see, board correspondence, none. Agenda items, none. Okay, I need a motion to go into closed session. Moved by Mrs. Towers and second by Mr. Parrish. I'll get them straight.
And we do have the need to go in closed session, appointment of employees, compensation, discipline, performance, dismissal, and also collective bargaining matters between district and its employees.
Okay, I need to roll call that.